Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Generally Speaking, where we bridge the worlds of pop culture and personal development. Today, we are talking about the McBee Dynasty, so giddy up, cowboy. But before we get started, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you reach out and smash that subscribe button. Okay, now saddle up, because this week was once again a wild ride with those McBee boys. So the show opens, and the whole family is on their way down to the Ozarks for a few days of family fun, including Calah, Stephen Jr.'s sometimes girlfriend. But nobody's happy about that part. The whole family thinks Calah is bad news, basically because Calah occasionally calls them on their crap. And as for Calah, all she wants to do is be accepted. Everyone arrives at this big, beautiful home on the lake. They all settle in, and they're soon joined by the boys' Uncle Jimmy, Stephen Sr.'s big brother, someone that the boys have always looked up to as a secondary father figure. And Uncle Jimmy also used to be very close to Mama McBee before her and Stephen separated. Their reunion was sweet, and all the boys were super happy to see it. And then it's time for the shenanigans to start. Everybody gets ready, they all go out to dinner, and I have to admit, the Lake of the Ozarks looks very fun. The boys are looking to let loose, so the drinks are flowing and Cole is already feeling it. Casey, who's pregnant with his baby, says you'd think that he'd be maturing as he gets older, but it's actually working opposite. They all come home from dinner and then they head down to the dock to play a game where you pull questions out of a hat, which caused Stephen Jr. to admit that he would rather make out with Galena than have to live with her for a week. And then the big questions start happening. Then Stephen Jr. says to Jesse, listen, I know you've got a wedding coming up, but why haven't I seen that prenup come across my desk yet? And Jesse says, as much as I know that Allie's going to hate this conversation, I do know that we need to have it. Then Casey reads the last question and says to Stephen Jr., Stephen, if Cole was put in charge of the farm, would you listen to him? And Stephen quickly says no, and now I'm going to bed. Then the next morning, Stephen and Calah are outside on the patio while everybody else is inside. And it's then when Mama McBee says to camera, you know, I trust Stephen with everything in his life, except Calah. I want him to move on. Then they cut back to Stephen and Calah outside, and they're talking about that cute apartment that Calah says that she found. And Calah tells Stephen, you know, I'm still going to need your help with a cosigner. And Stephen turns right back around to her and says, you know, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. I think I'm going to need to bring my mom in. And then they do. And then Mama McBee comes outside. They both tell her that Calah has found this apartment. And then Stephen goes on to say, you know, I'm kind of maxed out with my credit. I think we're going to need you to co-sign. Would you be willing to do that? And Mama McBee says yes. She says yes. She's going to co-sign for this woman that she can't stand. And then she turns to camera and tells you why. She says, I'm willing to do anything to get her out of his life. And then she doubles down and says, the last thing that I want to see is my son in an unhealthy, toxic relationship. Just in case you weren't clear. Then everybody gets suited up for a round of paintball. And honestly, while they're playing, everyone actually looks like they're having a good time together. And then when they're all done shooting each other up, they all hop on a boat, head out onto the water, and they end up at a dockside bar where they decide to post up and drink up. And once again, Cole is feeling it first. The boys have decided that this is a dedicated party day, and Mama McBee does not want to hang around to watch. She says to camera, honestly, watching the boys party like this really just reminds me of their father. And holy shit, I have to say, listening to the way she spoke about her boys partying sounded exactly like the shit my own mother says. But truth be told, since season 1 of this show, I have always compared Stephen Sr. to my own father, so it makes sense. I mean, I'm not kidding you. When my dad was alive, you would have thought that these two were long-lost twins, cut from the exact same cloth, and that is exactly why this family feels so familiar to me. Granted, we don't have thousands of acres of farmland, but we do have the same dynamics, and we do love a lake vacation. Anyway, Mama McBee exits stage left because she sees the train wreck that's coming around the corner. And then once Mama's gone, Calah starts feeling frisky. So frisky that she takes her clothes off and then mounts Stephen in front of everyone wearing nothing but a pink bikini. And at this point, Cole's like, yeah, woo! And then he says, if that was in my face, I would eat it all up. And trust me, that comment did not go over well with his pregnant girlfriend, Casey, or anyone else. Cole made a stupid comment, then everybody started coming down on him for it, which sent him into a full-blown spiral. Then Jesse tries to be a leader and call a bunch of Ubers to come and corral all of these clowns out of there. But it's too late, because now Cole is officially having a crisis, bawling his eyes out and beating up a hill. Literally. Cole is about to become a father for the first time. The farm is in big trouble, and he is crumbling under all this mounting pressure. Then all of their drunk asses finally get back to the house, and when Mama McBee gets the 411 on what actually went down, she turns to the camera and says, you know, It was my ex-husband, Steve, that introduced my boys to all this wild behavior. And once again, all I could hear was my mom. She said the same thing about my dad till the day he died. Then the boys and Calah all head down to the dock. And it's there that Cole says, I think that God puts us through hard times to teach us the lessons we need to learn about life. And Calah comes back with, oh, please, hard times? You guys have had it so easy. You're 24 and having a house built for you. Cole starts to get defensive and says, Steven's been through more than he should have ever been through in his life. And Calah says, so have I, but no one gave me a condo or built me a new house. And Cole comes right back at her and says, no, you did. You moved to Dallas with a free apartment, and now you're moving back to Dallas with my mom paying for everything. So don't talk like that, Calah. And Calah says back to him, if you knew what you were talking about, you wouldn't be saying that. And then Cole loses it and says, if you knew what you were talking about, you'd be loving him. And you wouldn't be getting shipped back off to Dallas, where you belong. He says, you're horrible to Steven, and I just can't watch it. It makes me so upset. And he storms off. Cole isn't even gone for a minute before Steven turns to Calah and says, yeah, I'm not going to stick up for you. You do nothing but throw me under the bus. Why would I stick up for you? And then Calah says to camera, I'm not surprised he's turning his back on me. They all head back up to the house where tensions flare again. Steven takes Calah out of the kitchen and he keeps telling her to stop. And then she very cryptically says, the truth is going to come out, Steven. And then she turns to camera and says, Steven told me in private that his dad is being investigated by the FBI. And then Steven loses it and says, Calah, end it. What is wrong with you? Do you just want to keep going? He says, should Cole have responded the way he did? No, but he's my brother. And all he was doing was defending me. Calah starts crying. She gets up and says, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then Mama McBee grabs her opportunity. She looks at her son and says, this isn't love. And Steven says back, no, it's not. And then we cut back to Calah, and she's packing her bags. Then Mama McBee pipes up again and says, Steven wanted to treat her right, especially after her sister died. What? He wanted to? She says, Steven isn't perfect, but Calah is poison to my family. And then they cut to Calah and she says, I have so much tea on this family, I could bury them. Anyway, I love this family, but here's what I really want to know. Whose side are you on? Do you think that the main problem is Steven's behavior or Calah's? Do you agree with Mama McBee that she's poison for that family? Comment below and let me know. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. All right, everybody, I will see you soon. And until we're together again, stay rooted in love. We'll see you next time.